That right there, that is the Orioles team we know is in there. Looked good in all facets in a 9-1 win over the Guardians. And I'll recap it all coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast.
You are Locked On Orioles, your daily Baltimore Orioles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Orioles fans. Today is Thursday, April 17th, 2025, and welcome back into the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Connor Newcomb. And coming up on today's episode, we are going to recap one of the most complete wins of the season for the Orioles, destroying the Cleveland Guardians 9-1 on Wednesday night. I'll get you the 5 things you need to know from that one, including the best start of the year from Dean Kremer, a big swing from Jackson Holliday, and the Orioles adding on late offensively as well. Then I'm going to run through all the injury updates we got from Mike Elias on Tuesday about all the injured pitchers for the Orioles. Generally, some positive updates. We'll take a look at what this timeline is for the O's at the moment. And finally, an update on Tyler O'Neill, who was scratched from the lineup on Wednesday night. But that's all coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast, which is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. So we start this one with an Orioles victory. Final score from the yard on Wednesday night, the Orioles 9 and the Cleveland Guardians 1 in Game 2 of a 3-game set. After the Orioles dropped the opener, they have tied the series and set up a rubber match here on Thursday. And I'm going to get you the 5 things you need to know from this Orioles win over Cleveland. And the first thing you need to know is Jackson Holliday broke out of his slump in a grand way. The big swing of the game for the O's was in the second inning. Holliday coming to the plate with the bases loaded and 1 out against Cleveland starter Gavin Williams. Holliday got a hanging breaking ball on the outer half. He torched it out to left center field, just clearing the wall into the bullpen for a grand slam to put the Orioles up 4-0, 104 off the bat, 396 feet, just enough to get it out of there. And it was after some fantastic at-bats by the Orioles. Now, the O's went down 1-2-3 in the bottom of the first against Williams, but all 3 balls that were hit by Henderson, Rutschman, and O'Hearn were all very hard hit, and they looked like they were seeing him well. Weren't rewarded in the first, but they kept it up in the second, and they got that reward. Cedric Mullins drew a walk to start the inning. He had 2 walks on the night. He now has more walks than strikeouts this year, which has been a great development for Cedric. Then Ryan Mountcastle got a couple of sweepers that he couldn't handle, but on 0-2, he got a third one, stayed on it, pulled it into left field for a base hit. Then Heston Kjerstad ripped the ball out into right field. Nice running catch made by Angel Martinez to rob him of a hit. And then Ramon Arias worked a really good plate appearance to draw a walk to load the bases with 1 out. The Orioles were just simply locked in against Williams, and it continued with the Holliday at-bat, obviously driving one out to left center field. Both of his home runs so far this year have been hit to left center, and it was a big swing, one of the bigger swings in a while for the Orioles. And Sarah Langs had this stat on Wednesday night, Sarah Langs of MLB.com, that Jackson Holliday is just the 3rd Orioles hitter to have 2 of his first 7 career big league home runs be grand slams. Remember, Holliday hit the one the first day he was back with the Orioles last July against the Blue Jays, and then hits one on Wednesday night. The only other 2 Orioles to do it, Brian Roberts and Fritzy Connolly. Now, you all might know Brian Roberts pretty well. Who is Fritzy Connolly? Well, he played 1 season with the Orioles, 50 games for the O's in 1985. He hit just 3 home runs. 2 of them were grand slams. He played a little bit sparingly in the big leagues in 1983, but really 85 with the O's was his only real big league season. The Orioles had traded for him before that year. And an interesting group of names there. 2 of your first 7 career homers with the O's are grand slams. But the second thing you need to know from this Orioles 9-1 win on Wednesday is that Dean Kremer finally gave the Orioles a good start. It had not been good for Dean. I mean, we had been talking a lot about how bad Charlie Morton has been, but Dean Kremer had been almost as bad coming into this start. It was not pretty in his first 3 outings. He had an 8.16 ERA. He had gone 5 1/3, 5 runs, 4 1/3, 3 runs, 4 2/3, 6 runs in his first 3 starts. Now, this one wasn't perfect by any means, but this one was different and so much better. 5 1/3 innings of 1-run baseball for Dean Kremer. He allowed 4 hits with 2 strikeouts, 1 walk, and the solo home run he allowed to Gabriel Arias to lead off the 3rd inning was the only run allowed on 96 pitches. And I think the best thing for Kremer, who has struggled at times in his career with giving up hard contact, he only allowed 4 hard hit balls in 5 1/3 innings. That was, on Wednesday, the 17th start made by the Orioles this year. Obviously, their 17th game of the season. And Kremer's 4 hard hit balls were the least hard hit balls allowed by any Orioles starter in the 17 games so far this year. You could argue, even though I think Zach Eflin probably had some better starts when he would go 6 innings, that was one of the best starts by an Oriole pitcher this year. And it still leaves a lot to be desired. He only lasted 5 1/3. He got into a little trouble in the 5th, and then the 6th, when he left the game, it elevated his pitch count, so he wasn't able to stay in the game longer. But with what the Orioles were getting from their rotation, the worst rotation ERA in Major League Baseball coming into Wednesday night, you will absolutely take 5 1/3 innings of 1-run ball. I mean, give that to me every single night for a little while, with as bad as the Orioles have been. This was just the 6th Orioles start out of 17 this year in which the starter recorded an out in the 6th inning. Eflin has 3 of them. Dean now has 2 of them, and 1 each for Cade Povich and Tomoyuki Sugano. Only the 4th start out of 17 where the starting pitcher allowed only 1 earned run. And Dean didn't do it by missing bats. He got just 6 whiffs on 44 swings. That is a very low swing and miss rate. But he was throwing strikes. He walked only 1. He forced the Guardians to put the ball in play. And when they did not hit the ball hard. And that was a recipe for success from Kremer. And he can be a strikeout pitcher, but that's not when he's at his best. He's at his best when he's throwing the kitchen sink at opposing lineups, mixing his pitches and getting some soft contact. And that is what we saw. He threw all 5 of his pitches between 17 and 24 times. The splitter was the number 1 used pitch. It was better, 24 of them. But every pitch thrown between 17 and 24 times, it's kind of the way that Logan Allen dominated the Orioles lineup on Tuesday night. It's not overpowering stuff, but he could throw any pitch in any count for a strike. That is what Kremer was able to do on Wednesday. He kept the Guardians hitters on their toes. And yes, it would be nice if a starter could go out there and punch out 9 in 7 scoreless. But right now, we will take what Kremer gave us. And that was one of the better starts in a while for the Baltimore Orioles. Third thing you need to know from Wednesday's win is that the Orioles bullpen was good behind Dean Kremer as well. Brian Baker entered the game when Kremer exited with a runner on first and 1 out, with the O's leading 4-1 in the top of the 6th. He remains a perfect 7 for 7 in stranding runners this year. Baker has just been phenomenal. An inning and a third scoreless, 1K, 2 hits, no walks for Brian Baker. Even though the Orioles' first batter Baker faces, they allow a pop-up to somehow fall in down the left field line. Should have been the second out, instead becomes a single. Baker just bears down, gets a pop-up, and then Heston Kjerstad makes a fantastic sliding catch in right center field to end that inning. Saved what probably would have been a 2-run triple for Angel Martinez and made it a 4-3 game. So really good night for Heston. We'll get to him a little bit later. Probably the best defensive play I've seen Kjerstad make since he's been in the big leagues with the Orioles. That was a huge swinging point in this game. But then Baker came back and got 2 more outs in the 7th. He's just been so good this year with that new pitch mix. Gregory Soto got a big strikeout of Steven Kwan to end the 7th. He was a little shaky, allowed back-to-back hits in the 8th. And after he did have that rough outing on Sunday, this one a little up and down and was pulled from the game. But Yennier Cano got out of a jam, came in first and third, no outs. He went strikeout, walk, and then he turns a double play with the bases loaded and 1 out on a ground ball hit back to him on the worst rule in baseball, with Angel Martinez being called out at first base for running out of the quote-unquote running lane as the ball was thrown home for the second out at the plate. Adley threw to first. It hit Martinez in the back. The home plate umpire immediately signaled him out. Here's why this rule is so dumb. You can't run out of the running lane. The running lane is drawn on the foul territory side of the first baseline. Here's the issue with that. A, most hitters, mostly righties, Martinez was hitting lefty. When you're a right-hander and you start running out of the box, you are already just physically on the fair side of the line. You have to veer to get into the foul territory side. And the second thing is, you are running for the base. The goal is to get to first base. You're supposed to run in the running lane, which is in foul territory. The base is in fair territory. So if you're taking the most direct route to first base to maximize your speed and minimize your time it takes you to get there to beat out a play, you have to run some in fair territory because that is where the base is. It is such a stupid rule. I mean, it was nice that it helped out the Orioles get them out of a jam on Wednesday, but it is the dumbest rule in baseball and one of the dumbest rules in sports. If you are going to make the running lane in foul territory and call guys out for running in fair territory, then the base can't be in fair territory. You got to get the double base, which we've seen in college baseball get adopted some this year, where you have the white base that sits in fair territory and then the orange base that is connected to it, something you see in Little League a lot, that sits in foul territory. So there's one base that the first baseman stands on. There's another one that the runner runs through. It takes this play from being stupid, and it results in less injuries where guys get tangled up at the bag. I do not understand why they still have this rule in place and yet don't have that double base down at first. It's the number one thing I want baseball to do. It's the dumbest rule in the world, but I'm okay with it on Wednesday night because it helped the Orioles escape a jam in the eighth inning, and then Keegan Aiken with a 9-1 lead, 1-2-3 in the ninth to finish things off. Now, the fourth thing you need to know from this win is that Ramon Lauriano hit his first Orioles home run. He was only starting because Tyler O'Neill was a late scratch from the lineup with neck discomfort. So Lauriano was inserted into left field starting this game and hitting ninth. And he got not just a home run, but a home run off a righty. Lauriano, who's here to hit left-handers and had only one hit on the season coming into this one. 106 off the bat, 393 feet. The final pitch that Guardian starter Gavin Williams threw was a 2-out solo homer from Lauriano in the seventh inning to put the Orioles up 5-1. Just his second hit of the year, just his second hard hit ball of the year, his hardest contact he's made all season. Would be good timing for Lauriano to start to get it going, especially if O'Neill, this neck issue is an actual issue, which we'll get to later in the show. But the fifth and final thing you need to know from the Orioles' 9-1 win over the Guardians on Wednesday night is that the Orioles offense also added late. After the solo shot from Lauriano in the seventh, they got 4 more runs in the bottom of the eighth to pull away. And this was after the Orioles offense was kind of shut down. They got the Holliday grand slam in the second. After that, Gavin Williams, the Cleveland starter, really rolled along for like 4 or 5 innings there until the Lauriano homer in the seventh. The Orioles offense went quiet, but it was really good to see them add on that insurance at the end and not just be content with the 4 or 5 runs they had scored. Now, Tristan McKenzie, who had all this weird elbow and arm stuff, his velo's down, used to be a great starter. Now he's like a bad reliever, the mop-up guy in the Guardians bullpen. I kind of feel bad for where McKenzie has gone to. He pitched the eighth in a 5-1 game. He threw a pitch like 8 feet over Rhino Hearn's head that went into the screen at the backstop. Then he bounced one at 50 feet. That was 2 pitches to make it 3-1. The next pitch was a high fastball in the zone, and O'Hearn absolutely clobbered that baseball. 108 off the bat into the flag court to make it 6-1, and the O's kept going. You had a Mullins double, a Mountcastle walk. Heston Kjerstad came through with a 2-run single, which was really good to see from him. He made the great catch. He only had 1 hit, but he had 4 hard hit balls in this game for the first time in Kjerstad's career. He had 4 batted balls in 1 game, over 95 miles per hour in their exit velocity. That is a great sign for Heston, who is continuing to get some good playing time for this Orioles team. Ramon Arias had himself a sac fly in the inning as well. Like, nice to see the Orioles just add on late because their offense, even when they got in big swings, it kind of gone quiet at times. It was good to see them continue to put the pressure on, continue to add and put this game completely away in the bottom of the eighth inning, get the 9-1 win, get to 7-10 on the season, and even this series at 1 game apiece. Now, the reason why this win is so great is not just because of the 9 runs, it's because the Orioles only gave up 1, and because the Orioles starter specifically pitched into the 6th and only gave up 1. We haven't seen that a lot this year, and some of that's because the Orioles have been bad as a starting rotation. Some of it's because a lot of their rotation is on the injured list. We got updates, though, on all of those injured pitchers from Mike Elias on Tuesday. Going to run down some of them and what they mean for the future of this Orioles rotation. That is coming up next. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV. Did you know that your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices with no console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Avowed as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. And with 4K streaming, you have endless entertainment. You can watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribed services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and more. And I'm not the biggest gamer in the world, but I'll tell you right now, with the Fire Stick to watch all of those shows and movies, it's kind of endless once you're done watching an Orioles game on a weekday night. So head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K second generation, Fire TV Stick 4K Max first and second generation, and Fire TV Cube third generation. And this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is also brought to you by Game Time. There is nothing better than catching an MLB game live. The crack of the bat, the roar of the crowd, and the smell of ballpark food. And if you're looking to go last minute, Game Time makes getting tickets easier than ever. With last minute deals, all-in pricing, and a lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the stress out of buying MLB tickets. Plus, ticket prices drop as the game time gets closer, meaning you can score an incredible deal. And Game Time is the official ticketing partner of Locked On. And as these Orioles regular season games continue to come up during this homestand, I can count on Game Time to help grab tickets that meet my needs. I am always looking at tickets last minute on Game Time. I grab a ticket 15 minutes before first pitch outside the ballpark. They had unbeatable prices, more money for food and merch inside the ballpark. And then if you buy the ticket 15 minutes before, you just show it right on the Game Time app. You don't have to find it anywhere. You just walk up to the gate, it gets scanned right on the app, and you are inside of Oriole Park. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So we know right now the biggest problem for this Orioles team is their starting rotation. And we know that a lot of that is because of the injuries the O's have suffered. At this point, it is a laundry list of Orioles starting pitchers who are on the injured list. And Mike Elias, when he met with the media before Tuesday's game, came with a sheet of paper, literally because he was not going to be able to remember all of the injury updates he had for all of those starting pitchers. So he brought his cheat sheet, he read them out to the media, and we got updates on pretty much every injured Orioles pitcher. So I'm going to run through those updates here, and I'm going to kind of put them in timeline form. So I'm going to start with the pitchers who are the closest to being back on the mound, and then go in order all the way to the guys who seem to be the furthest from getting on the mound in terms of the updates that Elias gave on Tuesday. So we start with Kyle Gibson, who seems to be the soonest to returning. That is because he's not coming off an injury. Gibson, who the Orioles signed to a one-year, about $5 million deal shortly before opening day, just to add some depth to this rotation, mostly because they knew Grayson Rodriguez was going to be out for a while. They want another depth pitcher. They know Gibson well from his 2023 season in Baltimore, but we also knew that while he had thrown some bullpens at home, he needed to fully build up before he was going to be ready to go. So there was a clause put in his contract where he could be optioned to AAA. Gibson went to Florida for a bit. Then he came up last week, made one AAA start through 47 pitches. Then he started again in AAA and threw 63 more pitches in his next one. So that's good progress from 47 to 63. Now, Mike Elias said he is not an option for this Saturday. The Orioles, for the first time since putting Zach Eflin on the injured list, will need another starter on Saturday. Now, everything Elias has said is pointing to the fact that Brandon Young is going to be called up to start either Friday or Saturday, most likely Saturday. It's not confirmed yet, but that is what's probably going to happen. Gibson, we know, is not going to be an option. The Orioles have said he's going to need at least one more start in AAA. Now, most likely, that start will probably come this Sunday for the Tides. And Elias did say the way his contract is structured, talking about Kyle Gibson, will be counting on him by May 1st. That tells me that his contract has an opt-out clause on May 1st where he can become a free agent again if he is not in the big league. So he's going to be up by May 1st. Now, if he does make his final AAA start on Sunday, that means that it could put him on track to start Friday, April 25th. That is the next time he would be available to potentially come up to the big leagues. Funny enough, if Brandon Young does get called up on Saturday to make the start for the Orioles, Friday the 25th would be the next scheduled start for Brandon Young if he stayed in the rotation. Now, there's a small chance Zach Eflin could also be back by then, and we'll get to that in a moment. But what the Orioles could do is just replace Young with Gibson on the 25th. So you're saying, oh, who goes down for Gibson's spot? Well, if Eflin's still on the IL, unless Young is amazing on Saturday, you could option him and call up Kyle Gibson to make that start. That is totally a possibility. Or maybe you have Young start the 25th, and then you option him down, and you bring up Gibson on the 26th to make a start, and everybody gets a little bit of extra rest. It kind of all depends on where Zach Eflin is at, but Gibson will be up here before May 1st. Next up is Zach Eflin, who has been on the injured list for just over a week now with a mild lat strain, but we got good news on him. He threw in the outfield before Wednesday's game. That was his first time throwing since after he made that start last Monday and then was put on the IL last Tuesday. So it took him about a week, which we knew. The Orioles said they'd shut him down for a week. They ended up shutting him down for 8 days. And then, boom, he throws on Wednesday. He said he felt good after throwing, which is certainly a good sign. Elias said Tuesday his absence will be measured in weeks and not months. They have to just see how he feels as he continues to throw. This is me saying this and not Elias. Hopefully by May 1st, Eflin can be ready, but we will certainly see, but definitely good news on him. Next up is Chase McDermott, the Orioles' top pitching prospect, the right-hander who made one major league start last year, suffered a lat injury in spring training and was shut down for a while. Mike Elias said he has thrown multiple bullpens so far, and his velocity is built up. McDermott is going to be in Florida and finally face live hitters for the first time next week, and Elias said he could be activated before the end of May. Now, unless the Orioles are in more dire needs for a starter, when he is activated, it's probably going to be to the AAA roster because he does have options. He'll begin the year in Norfolk. He'll make some starts there, and then at some point in the middle of the season, McDermott's going to be an option, whether as a starter or a reliever for the Orioles, but good signs there. And Elias also said that Trevor Rogers is basically on the same timeline as McDermott. He had a knee injury earlier in the winter that took him out for all of spring training. He has also thrown multiple bullpens. He's also built up velo-wise. He's also going to face live hitters in Florida next week. And Elias said he also could be activated before the end of May. I know Rogers was not good for the Orioles last year, but with the pitching situation they're in, it kind of hurts the guys like Rogers and McDermott are not available. That's a lot of what Elias talked about with the media as well on Tuesday, kind of after he ran through this laundry list of injury updates where he said, hey, we brought in a lot of depth this offseason. We did not expect to be using all of it by April 15th. And that is fair. They had basically 11 starting pitchers, and currently they have 4 on the active roster because so many guys, even the depth guys, have gotten injured. We also got a Grayson Rodriguez update. Tricep and elbow inflammation shut him down during spring training. The Orioles said they were going to shut him down, then he would start throwing again. It would be a full buildup just like it were spring. Elias said he has thrown 2 bullpens so far. His next one is scheduled for today on Thursday, so that is a good sign. And Elias also said he threw breaking balls in his last bullpen session. Sometimes when you build up, you only throw fastballs in your first one, and then you start to throw the breaking stuff. But he would not assign a timetable yet to Grayson Rodriguez. And did get a question about kind of what these timetables on these buildups look like. Really just think about when pitchers and catchers report. It is generally in mid-February, and usually when they report, they almost immediately throw a bullpen. So they have been throwing, playing catch, things like that leading up to pitchers and catchers report. And then when they get there in mid-February, they throw a bullpen, and it takes them about 6 weeks to be fully ready for opening day. So 6 weeks is kind of the timeline of a full buildup. So for Grayson Rodriguez, if you say, sometime last week, maybe 10 days ago is when he started through his first bullpen. He still needs to throw some live BP, then get into some game situations in AAA before he's ready to come back. But 6 weeks from last week is 5 weeks from now. It could be a late May return for Grayson Rodriguez if all goes well, if he doesn't have any setbacks and his arm feels good and the inflammation's down. I would target something like June 1st at this point for Grayson Rodriguez. That's why he's below McDermott and Rogers on the timetable here. But so far, so good, it seems, for Grayson. Andrew Kittredge, the one reliever we're going to talk about, who was also on the injured list. Orioles signed him, the veteran, to a one-year, $10 million deal this offseason. Had a knee injury in spring, kind of got that knee scoped, went under the knife, and was going to miss some time. He is throwing bullpens already, and Elias said he could throw a live bullpen. That means facing hitters in about a week or two, and then hopefully a rehab assignment a few weeks after that. So at worst, maybe we're a month away from a Kittredge rehab assignment in mid-May. And a rehab assignment for a veteran reliever usually doesn't take very long. So Elias did say Kittredge could be ready by the end of May. He's once again said Kittredge is fully ahead of schedule in the recovery from this knee issue. And listen, like, the Orioles bullpen has been the bright spot on this team. They've really been great this year. So if you're even then adding the veteran Andrew Kittredge, who you brought in, this bullpen's going to get even better. That would be a good sign. And hopefully he is back by the end of May. Then there is Kyle Bradish, who had Tommy John surgery last June. Bradish threw his first bullpen the other day, and Elias said he felt great. He said his rehab is flying along. Doesn't have a full timeline for him, but said they're planning on having him back this year in the, quote, later half of the summer. So I would think sometime in August they're hoping to get Bradish back. Now, you still have to operate with the chance, again, with a Tommy John recovery, that he may not pitch this year, but hopefully in August. And Elias said he's on track right now. Then there's also Tyler Wells, who was mic'd up with the team on Wednesday. He had the internal brace elbow surgery last June. He's actually surprisingly a little bit behind Bradish. Usually the internal brace is a quicker recovery, but Wells has not thrown off a mound yet like Bradish has. Some of that is because he was gone for the birth of his child. Good story from Andy Koska in the Baltimore Banner this week about Wells and having the child and his new glove and kind of the relationship with him and his daughter. But Elias said Wells will throw off a mound, his first bullpen, in the next couple of weeks. He said he's a little behind Bradish, but hoping also for the latter half of the summer, hopefully sometime in August, that Wells can return. Whether that's the starter or reliever is TBD, but hopefully they will have him back this year as well. And then the final guy is Albert Suarez, who has a shoulder muscle strain. Elias says it's a tough muscle to strain. It's kind of in the front of the shoulder. He said he's still a few weeks away from playing catch. He's resting now, and his return will be much later in the season. If you made me guess out of all these players, the most likely guy to be out for the year, it seems like Albert Suarez, the way they are talking about that shoulder strain after just one outing this year after the amazing 2024 season he had. His whole season kind of feels like in doubt here, but we will certainly see how his rehab plays out over the next couple of months. But there it is. All of those pitching injury updates, I got to say, mostly positive. Guys inching along and hopefully rejoining the Orioles soon. Got one more injury update to get to with Tyler O'Neill. That is to finish off the show coming up next. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is also brought to you by Prize Picks. Basketball and hockey playoffs are heating up, and there is no better way to turn your sports knowledge into real rewards than with Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy. With Prize Picks, you simply pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, and you're in. You can even combine players across sports, basketball, hockey, baseball, and more for your chance to win up to 2,000 times your cash. Now I'm looking at this week, and many people are taking basketball and hockey, but how about baseball? It's baseball season. Here is what I am picking this week. I'm taking more on Adley Rutschman hits. I'm taking more on Gunnar Henderson hits. They're swinging the bat well. It's going to come around for both of them. So download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That is at Prize Picks. Run your game. So we finish things off here with an update on Tyler O'Neill, who's been pretty good for the Orioles so far this year. Signed him to a 3-year deal this offseason with an opt-out after year 1. He homered on opening day for the 6th consecutive season because, of course, he did. And he's been good. A 140 WRC plus, hitting 265 with a couple of long balls in 14 games so far, 490 slugging. His strikeout percentage down from 34% last year to 21% this year. Those have been all good things for O'Neill. Been very productive in this Oriole lineup. He was slated to get the start, hit the middle of the order on Wednesday, and then he was a late scratch. Orioles said it was neck discomfort, which O'Neill was scratched with. Now I'm kind of going live here on the show to see if we got any Brandon Hyde, Tyler O'Neill update after the game, but it is some neck issue. Brandon Hyde said O'Neill is, quote, day-to-day with a sore neck, and it's something that cropped up on him yesterday. So that's better than thinking he was maybe going to head to the injured list, but it is possible he misses a little time. And O'Neill's been healthy so far for the O's, but we know about his poor injury track record. He's only played more than 100 games twice in a big league season. And if he does have to miss time, it would hurt double because Colton Cowser is already out in this Oriole outfield. And Elias did give an update on Cowser as well on Tuesday. He said it's a broken bone in the tip of his thumb. He got injured on March 30th, sliding headfirst into first base in Toronto. The original timeline from the Orioles was that Cowser would be out 6 to 8 weeks. Elias said they are hoping for a late May or early June return, which would put him on the later half of that 6 to 8 week timeline. So the O's are going to be without Cowser for at least another month and probably more. So if you're missing O'Neill as well, like if he did have to go on the injured list, if he's out for a couple of days, Kjerstad just plays and then he's good to go. But if O'Neill does go on the IL, you've got, you're looking at Heston Kjerstad in right field, Cedric Mullins in center field every day, no matter if it's a righty or a lefty, you're seeing those two guys out there. And then in left field, you have Ramon Lauriano starting against lefties. He made the spot start and hit the home run for the Orioles on Wednesday. And then if you do put O'Neill on the IL, you're probably recalling Dylan Carlson, the outfielder, to take his place, the switch hitter. And it would probably be Carlson starting in left field against righties and then Lauriano out there against lefties in a platoon. Unfortunately, that might mean a little bit of Jorge Mateo in the outfield as well to get him some playing time down an outfielder, but you would have Dylan Carlson here. But hopefully it is just day-to-day for O'Neill. I wouldn't be surprised if he's not in the lineup today, but maybe hopefully this weekend when the Reds come into town, he would be back. But that'll do it for this episode. Orioles are going for their first series win of the season today. It is a 6:35 start tonight on MASN. Tomoyuki Sugano takes the ball for the O's against the star right-hander Tanner Bybee, the 26-year-old for Cleveland, who went only 4 2/3, but he was scoreless in his last start against Kansas City. However, the start before that, 7 runs allowed in 4 innings against the Angels. Bybee has not been his usual self this year. See if the Orioles can jump on him tonight like they did on Gavin Williams on Wednesday. And then I will be back with a Friday episode recapping Game 3 between the Orioles and the Guardians. I'll get you all set for the 3-game series this weekend between the O's and the Reds. Austin Hayes making his return to Oriole Park. We'll preview that series and most likely another edition of the Orioles Bullpen Trust Power Rankings. That is coming up on tomorrow's episode. Until then, I'm Connor Newcomb, and this has been the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.